So he did a couple in-person sessions. We structured it as once a month, and then he was doing the home program, the remote program at home in between for the plan of care was about 6 months, a little bit short of 6 months. And so how that worked was I would program for him. He would go through the exercises based on what we measured that he needed. And then in the in-person sessions, we focused a little bit more on the nuances. If I was adding more complex exercises, he would need more like real-time feedback to make sure that we were getting the result that we wanted, achieving the desired effect of the exercises. And then once we got him back to full strength, those last 2 months or so, we were really focusing more on the sport-specific movements. We were focusing more on rate of force development, so that there's that element of power in sports, an element of speed, and being able to turn those muscles on quickly, and all the things that we'll say regular people or non-athletes, that might not be a consideration for them, but it was a lot more sport specific towards the end. And you had mentioned David had done a round of physical therapy prior to returning to play the first time. And I am good friends with the therapist that worked with him. And I've had conversations. We tend to go to lunch every so often, and we still stay in contact because he served as one of my initial mentors when I became a physical therapist. And so we were talking about sports stuff, and he's a very humble guy, and he has his orthopedic specialty, but some of those nuances of sport, he said, like, that's where he kind of relies on people like me a little bit who have more knowledge of sport and the in-depth knowledge of movement in sport. And so because he had this re-injury, I want to make it very clear. It's not because the care he got before was not good enough, or, it's not like they were missing anything. It's just the way that traditional outpatient setting goes. Once you're out of pain, once you have a baseline of strength, once your range of motion is good, that's when insurance really stops wanting to pay for care.
Right.
And when you see a certain volume, like I know they see a lot of post-op cases there. And so like it's a lot. It's many months to begin with to get him back to just that baseline. So it's nothing that went wrong in that traditional process.
Right.
But I'm also going to highlight a little bit of the trends that I've seen with people who have done physical therapy before and then started working with me. So some of David's measurements, we looked at like overhead press. We're talking about a shoulder. So overhead press, ability to move weight overhead. He came in at about 66% strength on his affected side. For a row or a pulling motion, he came in at 70% strength. And then for pushing, or if you think about bench press, he was at about 90%. So you can see where some of those strength gaps were, and that's after completing really good and many months of physical therapy. So these results don't happen overnight. And I always tell people, like, when I start working with them, I can usually find something relevant where they're in that like 60 to 75% strength on their affected side, yet we're pushing so many of these kids back into sport at well less than 100%. The only reason is they don't know it because they're not in pain.